On a cold November evening in Memphis, a boy walked alone down a dark street, his shoulders hunched against the wind. He wore shorts and a t-shirt that weren't made for this kind of weather, and he carried everything he owned in a plastic grocery bag. His name was Michael Oher. He was 16, tall as a grown man, but quiet as a shadow. Teachers knew him as the kid who sat in the back and said nothing. Coaches knew him as the boy who showed up late, then stayed behind to sweep the gym floor. Most people didn't know him at all. He had learned not to expect much from people. He had moved from one foster home to another, sometimes sleeping on couches, sometimes on floors, sometimes not sleeping much at all. School records said he'd missed more days than he'd attended. What the records didn't say was that he'd learned how to disappear, how to blend in, how not to ask for help, how to endure. That night, as the wind cut through his thin shirt, he tried to ignore the cold in his bones. He knew he had no real place to go, just a gym where he sometimes sneaked in to sleep. He kept walking. Headlights swept across him and slowed. A white SUV pulled to the curb. A woman rolled down the window. "Michael?" she called. He turned, surprised anyone knew his name. It was Mrs. Tuohy, a woman he'd seen at his private Christian school. Sharp eyes, neat hair, the kind of lady who seemed to always be busy and in charge of something. "What are you doing out here?" she asked. "Going to the gym," he muttered, looking away. "To do what?" she pressed. "Sleep," he said, barely above a whisper. Her face changed. Behind her, in the car, her husband and 2 kids went quiet. "Get in the car," she said. He hesitated. In his world, favors often came with a price, but the wind sliced through him, and the kindness in her voice felt different. He opened the door slowly and climbed in, clutching his plastic bag. They took him to their house, a big, warm home that felt like another planet. The children, Collins and SJ, stared at the huge boy who moved so carefully it was as if he was afraid to break something just by breathing. A guest room was made up. Clean sheets, a proper bed, a blanket that smelled of laundry detergent instead of dust. "You can stay here tonight," she said. "We'll figure things out in the morning." Michael lay awake for a long time staring at the ceiling. He wasn't used to quiet, or safety, or the strange feeling that someone might actually care if he stayed or went. Morning came, and then another night, and another. The Tuohys bought him clothes that fit his enormous frame. They noticed he liked to wear the same t-shirt day after day, saving the nicer things, as if he didn't quite believe they were his. They learned his story in pieces: a childhood full of chaos, a mother struggling with addiction, brothers and sisters scattered, no stable home, no place where he was anyone's priority. "You're with us now," Leanne told him one day in the kitchen, handing him a plate piled high with food. "As long as you want to be." She said it like a promise, not a favor. At school, things weren't easy. Though he was 16, his reading level was far below his grade. Words on a page blurred and slipped away from him. Teachers saw a quiet boy who barely spoke and assumed he did not care. But the Tuohys did not accept that. Every night, after dinner, they spread Michael's homework out on the table. Tutors came. They read assignments aloud to him and asked him questions, helping him find answers in his own way. "You remember everything you hear," one tutor said, impressed. "We just have to use that." Meanwhile, a football coach watched this enormous, gentle kid in the hallways and imagined what he might do on the field. With encouragement, Michael joined the team. At first, he didn't understand the plays, the language, the aggression. "You're too nice," the coach grumbled after one practice. Leanne watched from the sidelines, arms crossed. She understood him differently. Michael wasn't soft, he was protective. He had survived things most people couldn't imagine. Driving home, she explained it in a way that made sense to him. "When you're blocking on that field," she said, "you're not just hitting people, you're protecting something. That quarterback, that's like SJ. That running back, that's Collins. They're your family. Your job is to keep them safe. You understand that, don't you?" Protection, that he understood more than anything. The next practice, something changed. When the whistle blew, Michael moved with a new purpose. He pushed defenders away with surprising power, driving them back, clearing a path. He wasn't just doing a drill, he was guarding something precious. Coaches started to pay attention. So did other schools. As months turned into years, his grades climbed. It wasn't easy. A lot of late nights, a lot of frustration, a lot of starting from behind. But he kept going. He had somewhere to sleep, food to eat, people waiting in the stands at every game. That made all the difference. College scouts came with clipboards and careful smiles, watching this giant of a young man who moved with both strength and gentleness. They saw the potential on the field. Few of them knew the distance he had already traveled just to stand there. One evening, a letter arrived. Then another. Offers, scholarships, a chance to do something no one in his family had ever done. Go to college. The night he signed his letter of intent, the room was loud with congratulations. Cameras flashed, coaches shook his hand. Reporters asked questions about his future. Later, when the crowd had thinned, he sat quietly at the kitchen table with Leanne and her husband. The same table where he'd once struggled to read a single page now held a stack of papers with his name on them. "Proud of you, son," his new father said simply, clapping a hand on his shoulder. Michael nodded, swallowing hard. He thought of the streets he used to walk, the nights he'd gone to sleep hungry, the faces of people who'd passed him without seeing him. He thought of one woman stopping her car in the cold and asking him where he was going. Years later, when the NFL called his name on draft night, the world saw a headline: first-round pick, All-American, millionaire contract. Cameras captured the big man in the suit, the smile, the handshake on the stage. What they didn't see was the boy in the t-shirt walking alone in the cold. What they didn't hear were the quiet nights at that kitchen table, the patient explanations, the stubborn belief of a family who refused to let him disappear. Standing under the bright lights, holding up his new team's jersey, Michael thought of one simple truth. Talent had gotten him noticed. Hard work had gotten him ready. But love, unexpected, undeserved, freely given, had given him a home, and with it the courage to become who he was meant to be.